because he couldn't stop because it was an icy road and the person was killed. So you're going, had he been able to look up or keep looking, he would have had a chance to maybe even avoid, he probably would have rolled the truck and may have hurt himself, but he has to deal with looking down and looking back up and T-boning the car. So that's really the importance of why not to have distracted driving. So I'll stop there. I had a whole lot more, but I think that's impactful enough. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Let's move on to student presenters. How about we start with Parker High School, Cam Reason. Haha, I switched it up.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Cameron, and it's great to be here with you all again as we begin April. Parker High School has been busy, and I'm excited to share the hard work on behalf of both the students and the staff members. I'm looking forward to updating you all as the school year nears the end already, which is crazy to think. So thank you so much for having me. To start off, 3 members of the Parker Forensics team qualified for state this season. Senior Nika Cantwell qualified in the category Moments in History. Senior Sorch Morris qualified in the Interpretation of Prose, and sophomore Amaya Henderson qualified in Extemporaneous Speaking. They represented Parker at the State Forensics Tournament held last Saturday in Madison. We at Parker are very proud of them for their great successes in forensics this year. Avid 9, 10, and 11 students at Parker High School are completing their community service projects this month. We have 110 students volunteering their time, cleaning up trails at JSOL, helping prepare Rotary Botanical Gardens for the upcoming season, cleaning kennels and cat crates at the Humane Society, and reading books to elementary school kids at Adams Elementary School. Last week, students in Miss Eastman's U.S. History classes got to listen to award-winning author Jeffrey Gingold. Based on interviews with his grandmother and father, he wrote a book titled Tunnel, Smuggle, Collect, A Holocaust Boy. The book shares Jeffrey's father's epic story of survival as a young boy in the Warsaw Ghetto. Thank you so much, Jeffrey, for coming to Parker and sharing your father's incredible story of the Holocaust. Parker Arts Academy will be going on a field trip to the Milwaukee Ballet to attend the performance of Sleeping Beauty on April 11th. District music students will be performing at the State Solo and Ensemble Festival at UW-Whitewater at the end of the April month. Parker Arts Academy Musical is excited to perform Disney's Mary Poppins at Parker the weekends of May 1st and May 9th. There will be a school day performance for the SDJ 4th grade students hosted at Parker High School as well. Last week, Parker DECA took a field trip to Milwaukee to watch the Brewers play against the Kansas City Royals. We learned about the behind-the-scenes operations of that game day, and shout out to Parker's Sports and Entertainment Marketing class for organizing this entire event. It was a fun day, making great memories. During spring break, 29 Parker Spanish Club members and 5 staff members went on a 6-day trip to Madrid, Spain. The trip included visits to the Spanish Royal Palace, the famous Prado Art Museum, the Retiro Park, and the Santiago Bernabeu Stadium to see where the Real Madrid soccer team plays. The group took some dance lessons and attended a flamenco dance show. They took a day trip to Toledo to explore and see the impressive cathedral, and another day trip to Segovia to see the Roman aqueduct dating back to the 1st century and to the Alcazar, a medieval castle. It was an amazing experience for everyone, and I hope everyone had a great time. And to wrap it up, I just want to take the opportunity to thank you all for your time. It's been great to share the exciting things happening at Parker, and I'm looking forward to the rest of this school year.
And from Craig High School, Presley Morgan.
Okay, good evening, everyone. To start off today, we had our pre-ACT and senior day, so we all put up our handprints, got our cap and gowns, and took our senior photo. Last week, we had a speaker come for an assembly. His name was Reggie Dabbs, and he spoke on resilience and perseverance. All of our spring sports are underway, and so we're hoping for some warmer weather so we can get all of our games played. Baseball is 2-0 with another game tonight in Madison. Girls lacrosse won their first game 11-4 on Friday, and this was the first lacrosse played in Janesville as an official WIAA sport, so that was really exciting for all of us. Lots of our clubs are getting busy with the year starting to come to an end. Everyone's getting volunteer hours in. We have a Tri-M Bake Sale, which is our Music Honor Society. We have a blood drive coming up, Daisy Day, which are $1 daisies that get sent out because April showers bring May flowers. We're discussing having our talent show in May as well, so the student council is working hard at organizing that. Many students 2 weeks ago won Outstanding Performer at Jazz Fest. Blue Ribbon is planning an Earth Pickup Day. They're donating cards to nursing homes and also having bake sales, which has become popular within our school. Last week we had our FBLA state competitors, which a team placed in 3rd, a team placed in 5th, and me and my teammate placed in 10th in the state. Along with that, DECA ICDC is coming up, which is the international competition. That's April 26th. And we have 5 students attending that, one that placed 2nd place in state, 1st place, and 8th place at state. And I will be joining them, so that's exciting. We just got our prom theme, which is Tangled. We're also planning a week for prom, which is a new thing for Craig. We're having dress-ups, assemblies to honor academics, and just having that kind of like homecoming week feel, but for prom. We're also having the Letter Women's Club do another Powder Puff game, so that will be really exciting. We also had the Band and Orchestra Florida trip, which went wonderfully, and we're hoping to get our short film back soon for that so we can share that with everyone, which is essentially the band and orchestra played music, and they're connecting it to a Trolls short film from Disney. So we have lots of volunteering going on. We are volunteering for a run in Janesville, elementary schools, and many other things. We have cookie dough sales. We're decorating things such as a sculpture garden, as our National Honor Society is. They're also painting a mural at Mercy Health. And then lastly, in our engineering wing, we did a Go Baby Go thing, which was a child's electric car, and that got an NBC 15 feature, which was exciting. They also brought in Josh Gowie, which is a United Airlines pilot, to discuss with the aerospace students and hopefully lead them into that career. Finally, it is Vice Principal Appreciation Week, so we're doing something exciting, which I can't share in case they're listening, but we're doing that tomorrow. All right, that's all. Thank you.
We have no request for citizen comments, therefore we'll move on to 4.1, consider approval of the April 8, 2025 consent agenda.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Thank you. That passes unanimously 8-0. Commissioner Dahmerhausen is absent today. Please put him and his family in your prayers and thoughts today. His wife is suffering gravely as we speak. So think about Carl today. Moving on to 5.1, presentation and consider approval of the 25-26 staffing plan.
Good evening.
Move approval.
Oh, probably should approve that first.
Yeah, let's.
Should
do
we?
it that way. Well,
Okay. Is there a motion
Second.
and a second?
So I'm sorry, who had the motion?
Greg Ardrey?
Greg. Thank you.
Ready to,
We're ready to rock and roll.
okay. Patrick, can you pull up the? Thank you. Yeah, it works. Okay. Thank you. Good evening. I had the pleasure last night of actually following a Franklin presentation at PPC, and what I told the committee was this, that reminded me exactly why we do this, because it talked exactly about, it talked about programming for kids and student achievement and learning and how staffing can impact those kids. And so I know we're going to present a bunch of numbers tonight, but understand that those numbers represent teachers, which represent then in front of kids. So just know that. I am going to speed through this, but certainly if you have any questions, please let me know. The first thing I want to mention is this document, this presentation, it doesn't come together overnight. It takes months of planning, hours of meetings, and it doesn't just take the HR office. It includes all the directors, the principals, getting together, collaborating, coordinating to make sure that we have an enrollment-driven staffing plan that is going to meet the needs of our kids here in Janesville. And so that's what you'll see tonight. I want to just a couple of things. Bree Moran is my right hand, and she does a lot of work with our staffing plan, specifically a lot of work directly with our principals on this, so I want to thank her. I'd like to also include Lindsay Sales in that, as she's been extraordinary helping me with the special area teachers and scheduling those as we move forward for this plan. So our goal and objective tonight is simply just to remind you that in November we came forward with our staffing assumptions. And I talked to you about TPRs, which are board policy, but then also our administration goals of reducing the TPR in grades K2, 6, and 9, which are our transition grades. Of course, K2 is our start for students who are learning to read, essentially. So we want to try to limit the numbers in the classroom so that they have the best chance to gain as much knowledge and learn to read as quickly as possible for that. We want to prioritize our staffing to support our district goals, of course, as always. And then we also want to make sure that we give our principals, our administrators who know the staff the best, the opportunity to create the sections that they need with the people that they feel would best fit those sections to the best of our ability. And so, again, not only when we talk about the high school in terms of divvying out sections, but we're also talking about even middle school and elementary principals looking at where they might move internally people or across the district based on the needs of kids and where the strengths are for our teachers. So just so you know, very quickly, I'm going to go through elementary first, middle, high school, and then all the other areas, and we'll go through that, and then I'll ask you for some questions. So overview of elementary, essentially what we're seeing is a reduction of student-teacher ratio in all elementary grade levels. That's our hope. We share staff in areas, specifically at the elementary, it's the special areas, music, art, and Phi Ed. And we try to keep staff whole by adding duties or supervisions. This allows us to keep teachers in the building to do some WIN periods with kids. It also allows us to limit some travel, even though we do have that. It's inevitable that we're going to have travel, but we try to limit that to the best of our ability based on the schedule. What you'll see in my presentation tonight is we have an overall decrease of 3.0 FTE, which is the equivalent of a full-time teacher. Dan McCrae can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe our estimate is about $90,000 for FTE when we talk about salary plus benefits. This is the elementary summary. Our enrollment is down 75 kids. Again, we're down 3.0 FTE. That doesn't quite match up. Well, it actually does kind of match up if you're looking at the 4th or 5th grade. It just falls that way. Sometimes it doesn't always, and you'll see that later. This is different enrollments on 24-25 to now 25-26. You'll see some are up and down. And again, these are the projected enrollments as of January 28th. These will change, and specifically we talked about this, and Mark and I talk about this a lot. Where are our kindergarten students going to fall? We don't know. So this is where they're at as of January 28th of this year. Our core sections, so last year's sections compared to this year's sections, you'll note that Adams, Harrison, Jefferson, and Madison are all down one section, and that's based on student enrollment. The way we get that is we roll our kids, the sections up. So whatever Madison has in kindergarten this year will move up to 1st grade next year, and then we look at the TPR. Do we need to adjust the sections based on that? Again, kindergarten is our mystery number because we're looking at our P4J kids moving up, and Some go to parochial schools. We don't know exactly where they're gonna fall. Last year, it was about 50 kids. This year, we're looking at about 44. We're not quite sure where, if they'll show up or what that'll look like. And this is our elementary art, music, and Phi Ed breakdown. So we've got 13 FTE in art, 11 in music, 13.6 in Phi Ed, and that was due to just a little bump that we had in a section. So we're only up 0.1 as it relates to special area staffing for next year. Moving on to middle school, we have a focus again on TPR in 6th grade. So we're really looking at making those classrooms, especially the transition to middle school, which isn't always easy, smaller so that the teachers can have more contact with kids. That's the theory anyways, plus more opportunities to learn. Edison in particular has a large 6th grade, 234 kids this year, which threw our scheduling a wrench, but we got through it. And so you'll see that here in a little bit, but the 6th grade core classes are up a little this year. We try to share staff when possible, and I said this last night, our 3 middle school principals, there's no refereeing that I have to do for them. They work well together. They're like a well-oiled machine. They all are great colleagues and share camaraderie. So it's nice to have that. Scheduling is so much easier. We try to keep staff whole by adding additional supervisions. Sometimes that's a lunch supervision. Sometimes at the middle school, it's a study hall. It depends on the situation. And again, we're not going to give part-time contracts typically. We will very rarely now. We used to do it a lot, but in today's market, we don't want to lose people, and no one wants to work for, unless you're retired, you probably don't want to reduce for a reduced contract, work for a reduced contract, so we try to keep it as whole when possible. We do not at this time see any number or enrollment-based layoffs for staff at this time at the middle school. Overall increase we'll see is basically at Edison. Franklin's up a little bit too. So we have the enrollment that is up about 47 kids. The FTE difference is 2.63. That it's the core teachers at the 6th grade at Edison that we're seeing that too. And then the 6.3 is mostly the special areas, okay, or exploratories. These are our projections for numbers. You can see Edison's up 35 kids, Franklin's up 29. Marshall's down a bit, so, but that'll fluctuate throughout the year as we get kids in, out, you name it, it'll fluctuate a bit. This is our current certified staff FTE projected for next year at each middle school. For high school, again, this is where the formula that was created by Superintendent Holzman a few years ago, working with Chris Menewalt and myself. We've done a lot of work, particularly Chris and Mark have done a lot of work with the high school principals to look at how they can schedule tighter and essentially make our staffing efficient at the high schools, but make sure it covers all the sections necessary for the program that kids want. And as you probably well know or remember, that most of our all of our high school, besides our required classes, most of our high school classes are done by sign up. So kids sign up, so we base that on the numbers that the high schools receive and create the sections accordingly. So again, we're focusing in on a core reduction in the 9th grade classes. We share staff where appropriate, and again, both high school principals work swimmingly together in terms of sharing staff. Keep staff whole by adding additional supervision and duties. We do have this year a 1 enrollment-driven FTE reduction, and that is a result of just when we looked at licensure and the sheer numbers of students signed up, we just didn't have a place. Rest assured, we will work on that, but it's important you know. So we do have an overall decrease in staff of about 1.05, give or take. Oh, come on. What's that? It's not. Technical difficulty matters. Just give me a second. Right in the middle. frozen? Should we let it go? Thank you, thank you. All right. Yeah, if we had a bell. It's, oh, there it goes. Batteries work. All right. So, as I said, we're actually down 158 kids, which is certainly more than what you would consider one FTE reduction. However, it's all about how we schedule and all about where the kids fall. And just so you know, high schools are obviously big high schools. So 158 kids, while it is a lot, it doesn't significantly impact our staffing levels based on that, especially when we're trying to keep our teachers whole with their schedules. So that's what you see there. Then the enrollment. All right, so I don't need to read this to you. This is a graph that shows the individual departmental sections that we have from this year compared to last year. We'll have these for Craig and Parker. If you're interested or have questions about this, we certainly can talk to you about that. This particular slide, again, we'll have one for Parker as well. This is a fluid, and I want to say fluid because one of the recommendations at the end is we're going to ask you to approve this plan, allowing us to make adjustments as necessary. And this is one of those areas that we do make adjustments in. Travel changes, our supervision changes sometimes depending on schedules, and then specifically overloads. And when we see the overloads are, sometimes we get an influx of kids into one particular grade level at a high school or two, or in a particular subject. While we can try to direct that, sometimes it's above our means to be able to handle it with just the FTE we have. So we ask our teachers to take on an extra section, which is called an overload. And those sometimes will change based on that. But this is what we know as of today, tonight, I should say. Parker, same thing here. The travel, again. So the question came up last night, why do we have Craig, and I thought of this when I was up at the podium, Lisa, I think you asked this question, 6.5, it's because it's a semester. So what I want you to know is we have 7 people total traveling, one's for half a semester, and then at Parker we've got 7 total traveling. So just an FYI on that. Moving to the charter schools, we see our enrollment to be projected down about 8 kids. Overall change to our staffing is neutral, and then we always meet with the charter principals to talk about what they need and their needs for staffing, which we've always done. You can see the reduction there of 8 kids. FTEs there. One of the things I do want to point out, AVA in particular, or Arise Virtual Academy, that enrollment tends to grow as the year goes on for whatever reason, whether it's a complete schedule or partial schedule based on classes. We have kids that sometimes will choose, either they're choosing to do that or they're directed to do so, take those virtual classes, which increases the load on our teachers, which requires us then to either provide overloads or sometimes add limited term contracts based on the number of kids. We're still serving our kids based on their needs. So that, I just want to make sure you're aware of that AVA fluctuation. Rock River Charter also fluctuates a bit because they graduate kids throughout the year based on whatever program they're taking during that year. Plus then we have Parker and Craig kids moving into a Rock River Charter School during the year as they're graduating kids. So just an FYI on that. I didn't fill the second bullet out last night, but I did confirm with Angela Lynch. So our staffing remains the same. Right now, we are 44 kids down compared to where we were at this time last year, but she informed me that they started the enrollment process 2 weeks later. So talk to me 2 weeks from now, and we might be at the same level. We don't know yet, but that's where those 44 kids are that we don't quite know. Staffing recommendation remains the same. This is a paraprofessional staffing recommendation for P4J. Elementary level, as you can see, we use a 2.25 minute per student formula. So if I have 200 kids, say at Wilson, we multiply 200 times 2.25. That creates the number of minutes. We divide that by 60 to give us the number of hours of paraprofessional support, regular ed paraprofessional support that that school will receive. The red indicates that their minutes are decreasing a bit based on their enrollment. Black obviously indicates that they're either 0 or increasing a few minutes based on their enrollment for next year. Same at the middle school and the high school. And special education. Last night, I showed a graph to PPC, and it'll be in the notes. But the graph that Mr. Holzman created, actually, it shows an X, okay? And what the X is say this corner is where our student overall student enrollment was, Janesville student enrollment was in 2020. It was above 9,500, almost 10,000 students. If you track that pattern over time, actually it was about 9,500 kids, sorry. Track that pattern over time, you look here at 2025, we're down about 200 kids. That's our overall enrollment. At the same time, if this is our special education enrollment, students in special education enrolled there, having those services, 5 years, it's an X. That has gone up 200 students. So what you're seeing, and what we've seen in the last 2 years, is a pretty significant increase in the number of special education teachers needed by the district to help fill the needs of those kids. And I just want you to know that Kim Perenboom did a great job last night to talk about where we're seeing most of the need, and I'm just going to summarize, it's mostly in the secondary, but there's a lot of different things that go into that, including other districts. She can explain that if you'd like to ask her after the meeting. We certainly don't want to put her on the spot now. So, right, Kim? Okay. All right, so we're increased 8 overall for next year. Now, that does impact our budget. And again, like I said, an FTE is $90,000. So that is a significant amount. We'll go to the net at the end here. Title I is going to remain status quo. Our financial director here, Chief Financial Officer, Mr. McRae, has recommended we maintain status quo with the unknowns of where the federal funding is going to be for this next year. So we don't want to add staff and then all of a sudden have to pull back. We're going to maintain that, and hopefully that'll be good for us. That's our prediction at this point. EL staffing is increased by 1 FTE. That's at the secondary level. Julie DeCook does a great job of managing that staff and allocating the necessary minutes to kids that have certain needs, those needs, so that we can look at making sure that we meet those. One of the things that we're seeing is a trend, we're seeing a lot of initial learners, so that the needs are greater. The intensity is more difficult, and so we're seeing a need to increase the staffing at the secondary level. So this is our summary. With all the nets, minuses and pluses, at the bottom line, the bottom right far corner is 5.25. So what I'm saying to you is tonight, for next year, we're looking at, based on this count, 5.25 increase in our FTE. So if you take 90,000 times 5, it's 450,000. Add another quarter, it's roughly $500,000 additional monies that we need to meet the needs of our kids through our staffing plan for next year. In summary, also, just as you are aware, this does not include all those positions. We have a support staff side of the staffing plan where that's not included because it's not enrollment driven. So these positions are not enrollment driven. School counselors, deans of students, program coordinators, school psychologists, school social workers, reading specialists, just to name a few, innovation specialists as well. Those are a significant portion of our staff who do impact kids on a regular basis, but they're not directly related to the enrollment-driven staffing plan. So just so you know, there's a whole other side of the coin when it comes to costing out a staffing plan for us. My recommendation, our recommendation to you is to approve the presentation, the staffing plan for moving forward tonight.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any comments or questions?
I just want to say, At our PPC meeting last night, Commissioner Herda, Commissioner Hayworth, and Myers and I all had an opportunity to ask questions, share comments, and feedback. So I just want to let everyone know that we had, taken a great opportunity. So we don't need to repeat that, but thank you so much for thoroughly answering all of those things last night.
You bet.
You mentioned in your data that Craig anticipates 2.4 overloads for next year, and Parker anticipates 1 overload for next year. How are those overloads assigned?
That's a good question. Who wants it? No, they actually, based on certification first and within the department, and the principals have that list. I don't want to put Dr. Beyond, if you want to talk briefly on that.
Certainly, though, interest is a factor. Sometimes people are, willing and want to take that on. Licensure might play a factor. In certain departments, there is more narrow licensure, and so if, for example, in science, that might be the case. If they're already teaching a class, if they're already, for example, teaching world history, and we've got one more section of world history, it makes sense to assign it to someone who's already prepping that class. So all of those things, go into consideration. We work with the department heads, we call them instructional managers, to kind of help us make that decision. But generally speaking, we want people who are up for the challenge of taking on that extra course.
Thank you.
Yep.
And if this was discussed in the committee meeting, I apologize, didn't get a chance to review that. Going back to the reduced TPR, teacher pupil ratio. Kindergarten through second, 6 and 9 core. What was it? What is it? Just to give some frame of reference of what have we done with this plan.
Sure. The TPR for it currently right now, we're trying to keep it at around 1 to 20 K2. It's typically 1 to 25, but we try to keep that around there. When it gets to about 22, we've been keeping a close eye about adding a section. For grade 9, that's typically about 25-ish or so, give or take, for our kids in there. And then 6th grade is 25 or less, typically. What it normally is 1 to 30 for grades 6 through 12.
Never hurts to state it again and again
Yep,
and again.
sorry, yep.
I actually knew the answer, but.
I know, testing my memory is what you're doing, I think.
The other piece is, I see the regular ed paras, professionals were identified, and the special ed teaching staff, we've seen an increase. Typically, I think we've seen, the impact of the paraprofessionals in that area. Is there any increase, decrease, or no change there?
So overall, the special ed paraprofessionals are staying pretty status quo outside of the pockets in which we are adding some staff to those buildings. There are a couple of situations, however, in which we have a para who may be primarily assigned to a building due to a specific student, and we have a couple of those students who are graduating, so I'm able to shift some of those staff to other buildings to fill where those needs will be. But it is not as great of a need as what the certified teaching staff is.
Okay, thank you. And then lastly, although it may not be enrollment driven, the last page of all those positions, it has to be tied to enrollment. So when would we see just what do we have or any impact there? It may not be, it's not enrollment completely, but it's enrollment somewhat. So how do we get to wherever we have from a staffing from that standpoint?
So that is, frankly, that's what we have been looking at and are talking about. One of the things that came up last night is the Dean of Students for the elementary. And so we, as directors, have a list of those positions. For example, we analyze that. It seems like we talk about it every year, and how do we allocate that staff accordingly? So it is based on, how big is a school, right? If you're 600 kids and you have the same staff as a building that has 400 kids, there's a difference there. And we are aware of that. The challenge is finding the funds to help allocate the staff necessary to cover that.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, let's vote.
All right, that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Passes unanimously, 8-0. Thank you very much. Moving on, presentation of the 25-26 employee benefits plan.
Good evening, Commissioners. Good to see everybody tonight. It's that time of year again, and tonight we will be discussing the 25-26 health insurance renewal. Before we jump into that, I do want to hand out some thank yous. Over the past couple weeks, these individuals have allowed me to walk into their office at any time and run ideas past them and all of that. So a huge thank you to Superintendent Holzman, Scott Garner, Dan McCray, Matt Sylvester Knutson, Brianna Parker, and this past 2 weeks, Carrie Mickelson. So, tonight on the agenda, we'll be talking oops, skipped one. Tonight on the agenda, we'll be talking about the goals for renewal. We will discuss the voluntary benefit renewal, dental, health insurance renewal, and then we'll have some time for questions. So for our goals for renewal, we sat down and discussed like what we wanted to keep focused on during renewal. One of those was to keep minimal disruption for staff. We wanted the least amount of changes that we could have. Since last year, I have been meeting with a benefits advisory committee. We have met 3 times so far, and we plan to meet with them again next week, just to keep them informed and let them kind of know where we're headed. In addition to that, I have also been meeting with the JEA, and I went over this presentation with them last week. We also want to be able to continue to provide a comprehensive health insurance while aligning with the fiscal objectives that support the district. And final, our goal is we have a targeted date to become self-funded for July of 2027. For our voluntary benefit renewal, our vision, accident, critical illness will all have no increase. They will all remain the same and their plan design. The district does have life insurance, voluntary life insurance, short and long-term disability with Lincoln Financial Group. The district transitioned to Lincoln back in 2018 and has not yet seen an increase in our premiums. So right now, we are still currently negotiating. We are anticipating a slight increase this year for that. For our dental renewal, we have experienced a 3% increase. We do run about a 95% medical loss ratio on our dental plan. With this 3% increase, the district will absorb approximately $30,000 of that, while the employees will see an increase of just over $4,000. The adjustments to their portion of the premium just increases little. Any questions on the voluntary or the dental renewal?
I'm curious about the district-paid voluntary benefits, particularly the life insurance. Can you?
Yes.
District-paid life insurance. Can you just tell me what that is? Is that WRS stuff? No.
No, so the district does pay a life insurance policy for our full-time staff members, it is equivalent to their previous year's W-2. And that is just a benefit that is provided for them. In addition, they can purchase additional life insurance policy, and they can get that at the group rate.
Are you able to tell me what that is per, I mean?
If,
per
I believe
employee?
it's, what, I'm sorry, do you mean like what we pay per thousand for the
Well,
premium,
If I'm
or?
if I'm a employee, full-time employee here, how much does this district pay, what's the monthly premium for me to have 1 year's
I
life
think
insurance?
for each $10,000, and I will defer to our consultants, I believe it's 0.16.
It's like 16 cents
Six-
per $10,000 benefit. I think I have to look at it. But it's really inexpensive.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
And then tell me about the long-term disability then as well.
So in the event that an employee were to be out for an extended period of time, the district does pay for a long-term disability, where that employee can receive approximately 60% of their income while on leave.
And what's the price tag on that about?
I can get that information for you. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Does Cottingham and Butler know what that is?
I'm looking it up.
Okay,
Usually how that is calculated is it's a percent of payroll, and the percent of payroll is how much of the insurance.
Is there?
yep.
Okay, so it's calculated on as a percent of overall monthly payroll. So I can get a pure dollar amount. This employer-paid long-term disability as well as employer-paid life insurance has been a standard practice for well before CMB came into play. It was through it was through the NIS system prior to that, which is Madison National Life, also known as. So the district has for, I would say, Jamie, at least 20, 30 years been covering as a purpose of insurance for full-time employees, disability, as well as group paid life.
Thank you.
Okay. Health insurance renewal. So I just wanted to provide you with a brief overview of the 2025 national healthcare cost trends. What is driving the cost of healthcare? And just a couple of them are, number one, inflation. I'm sure everybody is feeling it across the board. Another reason for the increased costs would be chronic health conditions. Majority of care that is rendered in the United States is for mental health and for chronic ailments. Specialty drugs, as medical technology advances, so does the cost. And so biologics are kind of the up-and-coming thing, which is medications built from living organisms. GLP-1 drugs, known to keep type 2 diabetes, to help treat that. The cost is approximately over $1,000 a month. And generally, once a person is on this, they are not able to get off of it. It would be a lifelong medication. In addition to that, there's also industry developments, gene therapy and surgical robots. It kind of goes back to the specialty drugs. As that advances, so does the cost. And then we do have an aging population. Healthcare for seniors is approximately 2.5 times higher than for working adults. Wanted to provide you with an overview of where our current enrollment is. Mercy subscribers have 763 enrollees and have approximately 80% of the enrollment. Dean has 204 enrollees and approximately 20%. Okay, so this slide here is going to provide you an overview of our enrollment over the past 5 years, as well as the renewals that we have received from the health insurance. So back in 2020 and 2021, you can see that it still remains pretty 50-50. In 2022 is when we started to receive the first double-digit increase from Dean, and you can kind of see how that gap widens. As a reminder, the district pays 88% of the lowest cost plan. And so when we receive those increases from Dean's, that widened the gap of premiums between Dean and Mercy subscribers. In 2023, we did experience a large increase of 19.9 with Dean. And last year we experienced, 21.9 with Dean and 18.5, which then even further expanded that gap. Our 24-25 plan design, a single enrollee, their deductible is $3,200. The district contributes $800 towards their health savings account for a net exposure of $2,400. The family plan has a deductible of $6,400. The district contributes $1,600 for a net exposure of $4,800. So one of our goals was to have minimal amount of disruption. But one thing that we are unable to avoid was increasing the deductible this year. So the IRS has issued new guidelines. We have to have a minimum deductible in order for our plan to remain eligible as a high deductible health plan. If we're a high deductible health plan, we can keep the health savings account, okay? The IRS did increase the deductibles. So for the single plan, their deductible will increase $100 for the year. And for a family plan, the deductible will increase $200. Wanted to provide an overview of where all of the funds are going for our, and how much we're paying for our health insurance. So for our active staff, currently the district pays approximately $12.1 million for active premiums. The FAHP costs the districts approximately $1.1 million. For HSA seed funds, $1.2. Our retirees also are on our health insurance and receive the health savings account, and approximately $1 million a year for our retirees, for a cumulative cost of $15.4. Yeah.
What's FAHP?
That would be the Family Advantage Health Plan. If you may recall, that is where an employee can enroll in another employer-sponsored plan, and they have their medical expenses paid for them.
How's our enrollment doing with that?
Yep. When we started out, we had approximately maybe 30, 40 enrollees. As we received the increases, that number grew as well. Last year, we saw approximately 75. This year, we're looking at 130. So a couple things that we wanted to just keep in the front of our mind, along with our goals during renewal. These are in no particular order except for alphabetically. And things that we wanted to keep in our minds was access to health care, the district budget, our district's contribution structure, the ability to be dual choice, and employee satisfaction. We received the initial health insurance renewal. Dean Health Plan came in at 21.9%. Mercy came in at 9.9%. In addition to that, there is a rate cap with Mercy's current offer of 11.9% for the 26-27 school year. If the district were to renew as is, employees would see a $660,000 increase in the premiums. 140 of that would be for Mercy subscribers, and the remaining balance would be for Dean. The district has an estimated increased cost of $1.2 million. This is what our employee monthly premiums are. You will see the 24-25 cost, what the new monthly premiums would be, and then the monthly increase. So I just wanted to provide just a quick overview of what the district pays on an annual basis and the employee, what they would pay on an annual basis. Currently in this year, the example we used is the Mercy Family Plan. The district contributes approximately $20,000 for the employee's insurance, and the employee is contributing almost $2,800. If we were to renew as is, the 25-26 school year, the district would be contributing just over $22,000 per employee, and the employee would experience a $274 increase in their premium. And if you recall, I explained that the family deductible would be increasing by $200. So for our employees who are enrolled in the Mercy Family Plan, they would experience approximately $475 increase between their deductible and their monthly premium throughout the year. So when we received those renewals, we did some work. And we went out and we looked at alternative carriers, we looked at HRAs, really dug into self-funded, we looked at adjusting the contribution structure, and then we looked at total takeover. Anthem, Quartz, and United Healthcare declined to quote because they were uncompetitive. The state plan was 7% increase over our budget. In addition to that, they would require us to sign a 3-year commitment and potential surcharges based upon our usage. The district also looked at a health reimbursement arrangement account. Right now, we're familiar with the health savings account. The employee and the employer both can contribute to that. There were some disadvantages to a health reimbursement account. The employee is not able to contribute to that. Right now, our employees like the HSA because they can invest it. It can be a savings plan for their future, and it's known as the triple tax benefit. So it goes in tax-free, it's spent tax-free, and the interest is tax-free. That was one thing that we did not want to take away from our employees, was the ability to have a health savings account.
The HSA is a portable fund, so I retire or I get to take that with me.
Yes, when you
Correct.
retire, whatever the balance is in that account will leave with the employee.
And do we have some rules up front, though, that you have to be here so many years to be able to take that money with you? Do we have, you have to have a 10-year or 1 year or 2 or a?
Yes, so for retirement, we do have, well, let me just back up for 1 second. Regardless if the employee retires or not, they get to leave with that health savings account. So it's not tied to retirement necessarily with the district. But in order for one of our employees to be eligible for retirement benefits, they do have to be enrolled at least for the year prior in the insurance, worked for us for a minimum of 10 years and be age 55 or older.
What if I work 2 years, is that my HSA account portable?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you,
Yes.
thanks.
Okay, so then we started really looking into self-funding. And it was determined that right now is not the best time for the district to go self-funded. We would, if we did not do anything with our plan design, the district could experience a $4 million increase over our total cost. Because we have to take 2 things into consideration: our network and our pharmacy. And so what we have to do is when we go self-funded, we will have to go down to a narrow network. We're gonna have to pick an anchor system, whether it be Dean or Mercy, okay? So that is a big decision to make, and so we didn't wanna do that in approximately 4 weeks. Another thing that we will really have to look at and dig into is the pharmacy benefit manager. And so would we have a more progressive pharmacy benefit? And what I mean by that is perhaps maybe people would have to take a generic drug first before they are provided with a name brand or formulary drug. In addition to those two major considerations, other things can be added to help mitigate the cost. Perhaps biometrics. We would look at direct primary care and chronic condition management. I'm not saying we're gonna pull all of these levers, but we're gonna do the research and do our due diligence and make sure which one is gonna be best for our employees and the district. Again, we have that target date of July of 2027. We also looked at adjusting the contribution structure. The district pays 88% of the lowest cost plan, which right now all 4 tiers are Mercy. The state plan also runs the same type of contribution structure. So if you want a more enhanced plan, you would buy up for that plan. Some considerations that we took into account was to maybe adjust the amount that employees paid. So what I mean by that is right now we're 88.12, maybe we go 85.15 or 82.18, something like that. The movement for the district and for the employee, it just would not have made sense to go that route. In addition to that, we would be imposing some of the costs on our Mercy enrollees while decreasing the cost for our Dean subscribers. We also looked at backfilling the premium for Dean and paying 88% of both Dean and Mercy. This would have an increase of over $500,000. We also looked at total takeover. What would it look like if we were a sole provider with Dean or Mercy? So we did request these offers from both of them. We are expecting to have information by April 11th. In order for the district to move on a total takeover for July 1 of 2025, there would have to be significant savings, okay? And in addition to that, with regardless of whatever anchor system we went with, we would ensure a transition of care plan for our employees. So we would work with them, whether we're transitioning to Dean or Mercy, and help them get transitioned. Just to summarize what we looked at alternative carriers, HRAs, self-funded, adjusting the contribution structure. Those are not recommendations. Again, as I said, for a total takeover, we would have some consideration with Mercy as an anchor provider. Again, should there be significant savings? And as of right now, our recommendation would be to renew as is.
Can you speak to the implication of what Dean could do if we were to
Yes.
continue this way, the less than 20% that you mentioned last night?
Yes. So Dean reserves the right to decline renewal once we fall below 20%. Should the district renew as is, I am anticipating at least a 10% migration over to Mercy, which would then put us at the 10% enrollment. And would then be, we would be then having those non-renewal discussions with Dean. So just some key takeaways. As a reminder, the district pays 88% of the lowest cost plan. These large increases with Dean are not sustainable for the district's future. We explored several different options. I did just talk about the 20% with Dean. And again, our target date for self-funded is July of 2027. Are there any questions?
Could you tell us what districts out there are currently self-funded and what has been the results for them?
So generally speaking, self-funded is very popular in the western side of the state. in this area, I am not aware of a lot of districts that are self-funded, but the chatter's out there because everybody is, I wouldn't say that they are experiencing quite as high increases as we are, but they are also feeling increases. So it is something that is on the docket. You know, Mercy is looking at providing a a self-insured platform, as is Dean. So kind of making their own, like kind of how right now we're fully insured with them, they are looking at creating a self-funded type of plan as well. So it's shifting to our region.
Thank you.
I should have asked this last night, but, you know, when you look at the year-over-year enrollment, in 2024, you know, there was an increase of 18.5 and 21.9 respectively between Mercy and Dean. And then in 2025, when we asked for the renewals, I'm just looking at your chart here,
Yeah, I'm just gonna get to that page, sorry.
that Mercy renewed with an increase of 18.5 in 2024. And Dean at 21.9%. I thought of it last night at PPC, but I didn't ask the question. I was like, wow. Like, these are challenging times with health insurance renewals, but it makes you wonder why Mercy went down 9.9. Was, when they gave you their renewal, was there any, like, these are things that we were considering? Did they sharpen their pencil? Or they just want to be a great partner with the Janesville School District, et cetera, et cetera? Because obviously they're not privy to what Dean's going to provide for their renewal number, and obviously Dean stayed at the same as 2024, because Mercy was 9, 18.5, 9.9. Did they provide any explanation for that? I mean, I'm grateful,
Yeah, yes, me too.
but I would just like to maybe understand the why better.
Yes. Couple things could, yes, Mercy is a good partner of the School District of Janesville. In addition to that, I would say that when they gave us that large increase last year, it started to get us up to market, right? And so we also saw a large migration over to Mercy, so their MLR has gone down. So it's not as much of an even split anymore, so they're getting some good risk as well. In addition to that, I would say that Dean is, in general, 20% more expensive than Mercy, just off the base.
Like, another way to say it is probably to recoup the hold we had on those 3 years at 9, so, yeah.
And I will also say that we were under rate caps for some of those years, so they were catching up.
We had some really great conversation last night. I'm not going to repeat that, but I do have some more thoughts that we didn't talk about. Thanks for all of your work on this. You gave a lot of great shout outs. I also want to thank the committee members who participated in the benefits committee and the JEA involvement, because I think you were able to help us all make more informed decisions because of, I'm assuming, the feedback of our caring participants to make sure that we were all on the same page. So I think the more we work together, the better. So shout out to all those people who were willing to share their time with us with these really important decisions, because these are life impactful decisions. One thing, you don't have to answer now because you're not going to know this likely, but just to get back to us, when we were talking about the Family Advantage Health Plan, since we've started that, I think it would be great for us to know how much we have that has saved the district in finances. There was a comment, I think, we get asked, where are you saving? How are you cutting back? And that's a great example of a plan that we implemented to help the district find ways to creatively save without necessarily cutting programming. And so that would be great if you could get back to us on that.
Yes.
Thank you. And one thing I just want to point out, employee costs. So unfortunately, even though we're not changing much with our programming, we're kind of status quo, our employees are still, we're having as a district expected to pay 1.3 million additional without changing anything. So even if we cut something, if we're changing programming, we're still investing more than $1 million extra dollars. So that's huge that we all, community-wise, need to be cognizant of. But why is it that employees have to pay more each year? It's insurance. It's just the way of the way that insurance works. Insurance is not reducing for anyone in any way. And so as we have to pay more, that rolls out, unfortunately, to our employees, which we all hate.
Yes.
We wish that was not the case. And then a question that we get asked as commissioners is, why is it so much more for Dean in Janesville when there are other districts that, because I look at it as, when I look at this from numbers, I think, boy, Dean doesn't really want to play with us.
I would say a couple things. Dean is just in general 20% more expensive. And in addition to that, our MLR for Dean is significantly higher than it is for Mercy.
So explain that to the general public. What does
Yes.
MLR mean? How does that impact? We know what that means,
Yep.
but for those that are watching, could you explain?
Yes. So the medical loss ratio is the comparison of what the insurance company receives in premium and what the insurance company is paying out. And so generally you like to be at 100%. You're paying dollar for dollar. Right now, the district in Dean is running anywhere between 148 to 160%. So Dean is paying 60 cents more on every dollar of premium that we pay them. Mercy is running a little bit better. They're running around the 115s to 125s. So that would be my explanation for why Dean has gone up so much. Just the claims are higher at Dean.
And so as our employees are going to be facing decisions as we move forward with what do they do, how can we help them? What if someone says, I don't know what to do, or we hear that someone's really upset, we say, contact our benefits department and we're here to help you figure this out.
Yes, anybody is more than welcome to contact myself or Bree Parker if they have questions about, even the transition of care and what that looks like, and if they're, thinking about doing that. We're happy to sit down with them and set up a plan and reach out to our contacts at Mercy. We have a lot of them, and so we can get them in touch with somebody there.
Thank you.
I just, a couple thoughts, but first, the board will be asked to consider possible approval at our next meeting on the 22nd for our health plan. I'm curiously waiting for that April 11th to see what Mercy or Dean say, because that could have an impact on what we may do,
Absolutely.
right? With that being said, I'm still stinging about what we did last year when we went to that high deductible plan so quickly. And I know it's a little early because we want to wait for that April 11th date, but, I'd like to see something to minimize, even though it may not seem like a big impact, but to Mercy people, it's like $500 a year, $474, just, it's a lot of money. But so what can we do? Can we increase the HSA? What are some options? I know it's gonna have an impact on our budget, but, I'm still stinging after last year that we really made a big change last year, and I'd like to, not just status quo, but minimize that impact. On average, my best guess will be certified staff may see, $1,500 increase, but a third of that could be taken away because of health care. And I understand all the other implications, and I'm gonna be patiently waiting for Mercy, but I think we're a little, how are we gonna manage that between the 11th and 22nd? If we see a significant change, how are we gonna you know, the 22nd, we could have a lot of new information again, right? It's possible.
And
So we'll get that as soon as we can, right?
Yes.
After the 11th.
it,
And, okay, I'll leave it at that.
yes, as soon as I hear something, I will share that with you, as soon as we hear anything.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. Outstanding. You want to report?
I don't need to.
You can. All right.
So for finance, buildings, and grounds, we always have detailed riveting meetings, and sometimes they seem to drag on a bit, but recently, we've been using an hour and a half, and we get through a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff in an hour and a half. So a couple items of note, and I think it's important to note, and it seems like kind of old news, but I guess it isn't. You know, the debt has been issued for the referendum. And interesting enough, we have investors willing to pay premiums, which the good part about that, it reduces our costs. So compared to what we were planned for and where we ended up, we avoided cost and even saved some. So therefore, you know, that turned out really well, which we'll wait for my next meeting to talk about that in more detail. But just want to know it went out, and I think closing is tomorrow-ish. Don't worry about that. Closing soon if it's not. One of the more, I would say, you know, they're detailed. So as we look at what needs to happen and, you know, building systems and what we're looking at, whether it's cameras or door access or managing the building paging, you know, it gets to be pretty exhaustive when you have to go through a building with this type of detail. But I show that just to say that level of detail is taking place, to make sure that we're covering what's needed, and we'll know if we're not covering it, what is needed as we go forward. So as I talk about going forward, we really get into, once again, we went through a draft of the 10-year capital improvement plan, which was, you know, you're talking each building with that kind of detail. And some tweaks to the plan needed to take place, but really with the focus of, and I think back early when I was on the board, and one of the things that we really were focused on is, what is the plan? We didn't know what we didn't know, but now we know a whole lot more, so that level of detail we're putting in, we're able to talk not just conceptually about referendums, but digging in and recognizing it's so much now, and it'll be more in the future, but we'll know what we're shooting for. So I just wanted to share that. And with all of that, continuing to work through the budget process, and, you know, as and I just want to give kudos to Dan and his team, because the referendum work actually is getting done, as well as planning for the future and next year. And some of the things we talked about is the steps that we need to go to continue to plan for the future. We're already taking those steps to plan, trying to map out what makes sense financially for the taxpayers and to manage overall what's needed. So look forward to our next meeting here next week, and have any questions, let me know.
Thanks, Greg. Future meeting dates.
I think that's me.
Thank you.
Our Finance, Buildings, and Grounds Committee meeting will meet next week, Monday, April 14th at 3 p.m. with the location yet to be determined. The next Board of Education meeting will be on Tuesday, April 22nd at 6 p.m. here at the Educational Services Center. And PPC Committee, which is our Policy, Personnel, and Curriculum Committee, will meet on Monday, May 5th at 4:30, also here at the ESC.
April 22nd, I'll be on a plane coming back from seeing Easton. Can I call in to open?
We're trying to not do that. I mean, you can call in to listen, but you wouldn't be able to vote.
That's what our policy is?
Yes.
Can I make one statement? 20 years ago, President Kevin Murray decided to join the school board in April of 2005. I would just like to thank him for his years of service and his 20th anniversary as a school board commissioner. So thank you for your service.
Just getting started.
Those have
There
been,
might be a slight plug there, a little nudge.
those of you that have been around for that 20 years have seen me grow quite a bit, I would hope. I've changed a little, right?
A little bit.
All right, which is good.
You're taller?
I'm. Sure. We just finished your evaluation and now you're. Literally. Denise is gonna send the PPC committee 2 agenda requests. We had one on the retake policy and one on, staff evaluation. So that'll be coming to the committee. Those are great questions. Just wanted to make sure, May 6th at Riverside Ballpark, the Parker Craig varsity baseball game, there's gonna be a public cookout. But, and more importantly, if you haven't been down to Riverside, there's been some wonderful improvements and there's more to come. That wonderful facility, we got new dugouts. The infield has been reskinned, a new pitcher's mound. There's new landscaping going on down there. So there's some wonderful things going on. Lacrosse program started. We've got girls co-op hockey now gonna happen. So there's wonderful things happening in athletics. And hopefully we can continue. And then one plug, we could use a net down there at Riverside to catch those foul balls. All right.
The
So-
pickleballers would really love it if they got
Pickle,
caught.
yeah. So, anything else?
You're giving some shout outs for things. I'm gonna give some you gave athletics.
Yeah.
The theater department at both Craig and Parker are putting on some wonderful productions, and they are happening at the same time. So that's a little tricky, but I know that we can all get out and support both Craig's theater department and Parker Arts Academy. Craig is putting on Anything Goes the first weekend in May, so look for that, everyone in the community. And then Parker is performing Mary Poppins, which is super exciting. They are running 2 weekends, the first and second weekends in May. So don't forget, support both of those wonderful programs and all of the kids that are putting in a lot of effort. Thanks.